Hello, everyone!
Oh my god!
My name is T. Welcome back to my channel. I much appreciate all of the love and support from my last video. Today, we're going to be talking about furries. This is my friend Quin, one of my besties that I met in New York. Do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm Quin. I'm a grad student right now. I focus on Japanese popular culture and media. Happy to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Super excited to chat. So today I'm inviting Quin to talk about a little bit about their paper. They talk a little bit about Beastars and they talk a little bit about postmodernism. So some key features of postmodernism would be mixing styles and genres as well as breaking the fourth wall, referencing other works, and blurring the lines between high and lowbrow cultures. In a way, it's like a theory and philosophy. So within the gal style, for example, remixes a lot of different aesthetics that also disregards like fashion rules in a way. If we think about styles like Mamba, for example, there is a lot of like exaggeration of makeup and styles to the point of becoming camp, which almost is like this ironic self-awareness in a postmodern view. And so how we view people who wear jfashion, for example, can be often viewed as costumes, but rather people actually dress in those ways just because it's a form of self-expression. If we want to view it in the lens of anime, I would say that Madoka Magica is a really good example.
Hell yeah.
In Madoka Magica, they take the magical girl anime trope, something that's like very hehe, haha, and fun and whimsical and hopeful, into something that becomes like this psychological horror. Those are some examples of postmodernism when it comes to art and anime. So yeah, let's talk about furries. Stop right there. There are going to be spoilers for Beastars, so please be aware of that. If you don't want to be spoiled, go and watch the series. It is very good. But otherwise, proceed with caution. If you have watched it, let me know your thoughts down below.
This is a paper that I completed recently for a class at school. And basically the reason why I came to like write this paper was because I noticed in anime, in the world of anime, anthropomorphic animals are everywhere, right? Like we have like Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki, Mamoru Hosoda, Tokyo Mew Mew, like anthropomorphic animals are just everywhere, but I haven't read anything that like talks about interesting kind of like hybrid subject extensively, or even like tries to like theorize like this like mode of subjectivity. I was interested in like seeing how I could like approach like studying why the combination of like the human and the animal is like so prevalent in anime. Thought about Beastars because Beastars is like such like a recent like popular hit, and it's also one of my personal favorite. I just realized that it's actually so deep.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically like mature Zootopia.
Yeah. I love
serious.
Zootopia.
It's like serious Zootopia.
But this is so serious. I watched it, I was like, this is crazy. Like it critiques capitalism. It talks about like this like crisis of like identity. It's like so many different things all at once.
Right.
Which is why I was like, okay, like, I need to talk about Beastars and furries. And also, what's also super interesting to me about Beastars is the fact that when I was researching how they made the animation, I realized that they actually use a lot of like facial and motion capture technology. So the animators themselves, like, they have to perform as animals to like create this like universe of humanoid animals, right? And so in a way, weird like layers of like hybridity was kind of like what intrigued me to like write this paper.
Yeah, that is like truly being free from cringe. Is like truly embracing the animal within you. They really have the dog in them.
Exactly. Bring out the dog in you.
Yeah, I think it's like really interesting that Beastars in specific, it's one of those animes where if you see it, you cannot judge the book by its cover. Like,
no, for
you
real.
see it and it's just like, what is this weird like furry anime?
Yeah.
And then you watch it and it's actually like really genius piece of media, because I feel like, again, it's like really breaking the nuances of how we perceive like anthropomorphic animals and all of that. What would you say is some key postmodernism themes within Beastars?
I think the first one is definitely like the fact that you no longer have this like stable, like singular, like human like character as the main like subject of the work. It's a world populated by humanoid animals, and in my paper I call them humanimals just as like a shorthand. Yeah, it's just interesting that we have this universe where, you know, like the human is no longer like this like absolute like being. Like we have a completely different way of like viewing the world alongside like this new mode of subjectivity where our humanity is like decentralized, and it gives rise to like this like interesting like interplay of like when you see the work you're like, oh, like are they humans, are they animals? Like they have obviously with Beastars like Legoshi has the face and the body of like a wolf, but like he walks on like 2 feet, right? Like everyone walks.
They even
on 2
wear
feet.
like clothes and stuff.
And whenever, they wear clothes and they go to school. So that's already like a super interesting point of contention and complexity in this work, where it's like, oh, like are you like, why is it that we have like these like bipedal like humanoid animals like working and living in like this like super modernized society, and like, you know, like they have to go to school and they have to go to work and they have to like deal with like very like human problems, but also from like a weird like animal lens, in a sense.
Right.
We have this like conflict between like the herbivores and the carnivores, right? Like instead of like everyone being divided in this world based on like racial or like racial or like cultural like categories, like they are mainly divided based on whether they are a carnivore or a herbivore, right? Like these characters. And so like their biggest point of like contention, or like their biggest crisis, is like the fact that like the carnivores can eat the herbivores, or they do have like the primal like desire to eat. It's exactly like with this like crisis that I like think is like so like interesting in a way. Like we have this like blurring of like the divide between like nature and culture, because I feel like in our society now, like we feel like so alienated from like nature. Like we think of nature as being something that's like out there and like very like separated from our lives. But I think Beastars interestingly like brings back like this synthesis where, you know, like the human is literally fused with the animal. And so like we have to like move away from this like anthropocentric like way of thinking that the human is the absolute, you know, like in this universe where like human is no different from animal and vice versa. Like
right, we can't just like view them as one singular thing. We have to fuse it in order to understand their universe. I feel like in a lot of media we see like these kind of anthropomorphic people animal things, like such as like Arthur or something, where it's like in like through the lens of a kid's story. So I feel like oftentimes we view these kind of stories as like kind of almost even like childlike. Do you think that Beastars challenges how we view furries in media?
Oh, definitely. Like exactly as you said, a lot of the times when you think about like animals and animation, like you think it's for like children, right? Like with Disney, like Disney makes it like specific media in the sense that like it's only consumed, or it's only like generally consumed by children. But with Beastars and a lot of like anime I've seen, even like the ones by like Studio Ghibli, obviously a lot of it is like very mature. But with Beastars specifically, the way they explore like the problematic of like how anthropomorphic animals would function in like a modern society, like what kind of like life issues or like what kind of like conflicts like they would encounter. It's like it's very complicated and like multi-layered. I mean, Beastars literally opens with like this like gruesome murder of like this alpaca who we find out it's like eaten by like his own friend, right? Like he's eaten by his own like carnivorous like friend. Like how to kind of explore like her sexuality and like uses her like sexuality as like a way to like retaliate against like society, and like, you know, how like people view her as this like small weak rabbit that needs protection. You know, like she subverts like the power relations like against like other animals. So there's like all these like really interesting like nuanced like way of like thinking about animals, or like or it really like kind of like enriches like the way that we approach like thinking about how we and animals like might share commonalities and where we might be different, I think.
Right. Especially when in the story it's like this rabbit and this wolf, and you would never think of that pairing because they're literally supposed to be like in nature. The wolf eats the rabbit for food, and throughout like the story he even like kind of fights the urge to do certain things, like smells her scent and stuff. No, I can't. No. But
I love her. My desires. Exactly.
In like the story, he gets like so confused because it's part of him that wants to do one thing, but also he feels like another way. So it's like all those like nuances get so confusing for him as the human animal that he is.
Yeah, right? Like to have to like battle like being in love with someone and wanting to eat them is like so intense. Also, like that kind of like brings us back to like the first question about what are some like postmodern themes in Beastars. And I feel like the most postmodern philosophical like approach that Beastars offers is how, you know, life is like a multiplicity and that we have like everyone with all these differences, and how do we work through those differences in a way that we don't erase the differences but we still like coexist and we can even like love one another. Like how does a wolf love a rabbit? Like, I think that's like a really beautiful way of like seeing the world, especially during these like moments where globalization, we're able to experience like all these different cultures, but at the same time like there's so many conflicts in the world where people refuse to accept differences.
I feel like the contradictions really highlight issues that we have today. So because of the more we watch the story, the more we relate to it as like just humans alone, and it kind of blurs the line between, okay, maybe we're not so much different from these animals or these furries, right? Because even in a way also coincides with classism, really huge like hierarchies within Beastars as well that are like so very prevalent to our society today.
Beastars offers like a pretty like poignant critique of capitalism, if anything. It's just crazy that I only really noticed it once I rewatched it for a second time and really thought about it. But the reason why I brought this up is because a big theory that I like rely on to argue like view of Beastars is Becoming Animal. Is this like writing by this French post-structuralist thinker, like writer, philosopher named Gilles Deleuze, or like it advocates for this way of being, this non-anthropocentric way of being where you know we should relinquish like our human identity or like any kind of stable identifications and just, you know, open ourselves up to like become the animal or like the marginalized and the minority, to like really truly be able to like exist in a world and, you know, like fight against like capitalism, fight against like machines of control. Like you mentioned earlier, Goshi like smells Haru, like the rabbit, and then he goes through this like crazy transformation sequence and he turns to like a wolf under the moon and he becomes like animalistic and horny, and like these are, you know, it opens up with this problematic where like carnivores are seen as like these like monsters that only want to eat herbivores. But then because Legoshi is a carnivore and able to like, you know, have that power, he then is able to protect Haru and like forms friendships with like other herbivores, you know. In the bigger scheme of things, through undergoing like Becoming Animal, like Legoshi I think is able to shift like dominant powers, and, you know, like it offers like a critique of like the larger system of capitalism in the sense that Beastar, there's this black market where they sell meat. Obviously it's like illegal, but, you know, everyone knows it exists and people go there to still consume meat. So yeah, they're saying that you can't eat meat only when you have to purchase it, only when it's controlled by capitalism. It's the same thing. Or there's this like really freaky thing in the school that's called like Ecology Day, where they have these like rooms where like each like animal would go into like the room designated for them. Yeah, nature is then reduced to this like weird like model of it, you know, and that's so like dystopian and kind of like what capitalism is doing to the world right now.
100%.
Instead of like seeing, you know, a mountain, like you can just like, I don't know, you can like pay money to see a virtual reality rendition of nature, or you can like go to these like beautifully like curated like parks, you know.
Yeah, or it's even the usage of nostalgia. Like I feel like a lot of media and like going back to nostalgia to bring us back to a time and so we can consume more of it. So like one example can be rerunning like SpongeBob or rerunning Powerpuff Girls just to make more merchandise of it and sell it to kids even more so. And to sell it to also people who were also consuming those medias.
Exactly, commodification, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always circles back to capitalism.
Yeah. But I think like at least like, you know, with Beastar, it's interesting that it's able to like do a lot of that without saying explicitly anything. Kind of just infer that like from watching it. I'm like, wow, this is pretty anti-capitalist, very like unleash, you know, your power, become animal, and you form alliances with like all these like other beings, and then, you know, like that's how you shift dominant powers. And I feel like that applies to a lot of the way that I think about like the world too. It's like only through meeting like friends like you and like everyone else in New York am I able to deal with like messed up reality.
Right. Who knew a show about furries can really make you think about life and capitalism in such a deep way. And you wouldn't even think about doing that unless you watched it. Like even when I first watched Beastars, I honestly watched it because I got debated. Like I watched a video that was just talking about the physical natures of the series, watching it as kind of like a joke, and then it became not a joke anymore.
Yeah, period. And also, like, Legoshi's just hot.
No, period.
Like, why is he sexy?
Yeah, and that kind of leeway is also back into the capitalism thing to include those things, even though it's like so kind of hypocritical in their perspective, like the anti-capitalism is to also find ways to make it sellable in that way. We literally have a friend who has that shirtless Legoshi figure.
I know. Beastars is literally licensed by Netflix.
Yeah.
Which is pretty depressing. And it also makes you think about what even is anime anymore, in the sense that it's not strictly Japanese in its creation and distribution, because we have like these global like streaming services that's like reaching to like every corner of the world. Like, I'm from Vietnam, and we have Netflix in Vietnam now, and you know, it creates a lot of opportunities, but also limits a lot of things where to like now pay money to like stream it on Netflix. Yeah, and it leads to this like mass commodification and like merchandisation of these characters in order to make it sellable. Like, it just goes back to like making money. Like, that is true. Depressing vibes, but at the same time, it's a good series. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, I feel like I learned a lot, like, watching it. Especially since I, like, also did that, like, further research into, like, how the animators, like, approach making it. I also learned a lot about, like, how, like, they use their love for animals to like approach like the creation of like this type of animation style, right? Like, they would like go to like the zoo with like their like pet dog and like watch animals and just like sketch like animal movements and like study them anatomically.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just pretend that's a word. Through motion capture and facial capture, I think it allows them like move towards the animal, like to get closer to like being and becoming with the animal. It's different from just, you know, like drawing them on a piece of paper. Like, this is them like using their body and like really like trying to like become one with like this being that's like so different from them. And there's something kind of beautiful about that. And so like even in like the technique that they approach making the animation too is like a very ecological way of viewing the world, in the sense that we're all kind of connected. Me like talking into this microphone and like looking into like the camera right now, like our body has become like so connected to like these like different beings and things in the world. And like, how do we approach like thinking about the world in a sense that the human is not like the absolute master of everything, you know, that we can't survive without animals and without machines and objects,
right? And like, we all coexist together. Yeah,
and there has to be an ethical way of us like of approaching like seeing and consuming, making things, at least if we're already like saturated with like all these like other like beings and things.
Yeah, I mean, there just has to be a balance of everything. While we coexist with all between animals and humans and technology, there also are so many nuances to that. For example, in terms of like machine and humans, AI is supposed to make our lives easier, but in ways is kind of not making it easier. So it kind of like destroys kind of that balance between like the ecosystem between machine and human.
Yeah, like that goes back to like that way of dichotomous thinking where we always tend to like strictly like separate ourselves from like animals and machines, right? That we think like, oh, culture, like humans exist in this one sphere, nature and animals in this other sphere, and then technology or like techniques that exist in this other sphere. So it becomes this kind of like transactional or like instrumental relationship where we just think that like we can control the other spheres and like we can control animals and machines however we want. That's where it goes wrong, right? Because if we approach like thinking of them as, you know, like we're coexisting amongst all our differences and like trying to like find some sort of like balance and harmony to a relationship, then it would just like make everything a lot better. It would just make the world like a better place. Like, you shouldn't think of like AI as like a tool that you just like manipulate and like exploit and like use to like create like whatever. Like, you shouldn't think of yourself as God, is what I'm saying. Everything at the end of the day, like especially with AI, like, you know, we human created, so like why can't we treat it as an extension of our own body and like have respect for it in the way that we end up using it ethically.
Like, I think that there are good parts about capitalism, but there's a lot of bad.
Yeah, like we wouldn't have any of the things that we have now without capitalism, or like it's impossible to even say that, you know, anything is created outside of capitalism. That's just a reality right now.
Yeah, I mean, capitalism has like forced us to innovate as humans and to create machine and to also coexist with animals, and I feel like it does come to a point where it gets to like a really sticky situation. Like, we've talked a little bit about like the furry community, and I guess like in the furry community it has like gone so much more known to the point where now you can go on Temu and buy fursuits and fur heads for like dirt cheap, probably not made in any kind of ethical ways. Because, I mean, if you're paying for something dirt cheap, then someone else is going to have to pay for that price.
And that's also, like, the contradictions of postmodernism, right? In the sense that postmodernism as a philosophy, it like encourages this like anti-essentialist way like viewing and interacting with the world. Like it encourages differences and encourages multiplicity, but at the same time it reinforces the logic of capitalism in the sense that you have all these like differences that are being created and emerging, and immediately capitalism subsumes it. It like absorbs it. Because of shows or like media like Beastars, the furry community suddenly gets much more spotlight and much more exposure to the world. But at the same time, it leads to people appropriating the culture and commodifying it, and you know that's why we have Temu fursuits, which is very depressing.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
It is the accessibility, like people who want to get into the furry community, they can't really afford to buy like a whole suit, and a lot of people don't really have the skill sets to make their own stuff. Well, so we think.
Yeah, or so we think.
So a lot of people turn to, you know, AliExpress or Temu or, you know, whatever to get whatever thing that they want accessibly. But honestly, in my opinion, I feel because of capitalism, it forces us to consume at such a fast rate, especially at the point that we are in late stage capitalism. And it's like to the point where we think that we need these things like right now, because that's what capitalism does to you. It manipulates you into thinking that you need things like as of right now. And it's obviously we're all guilty of it, and I don't think that it's our fault at all, but I think it is also important that we are aware of these issues, and that, you know, it will take time to build your dream wardrobe. It's going to take time to build your fursuit. You need to take the time to learn the skill sets. As somebody who makes their own clothes, it's not something that I learned overnight. That is something that I've been learning for years and years. I learned a little bit from my mom. I learned a little bit from the internet. And now we're in an age where information is readily available at every single moment and second. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? So, I mean, you can learn how to sew super easily. There's so many videos out there. There's so many accessible information out there that makes it so much easier for people nowadays. So, honestly, in some cases, there's really no excuse.
Exactly. And, like, cheaper and faster is not always better, you know? Like, that's exactly what capitalism makes you, like, think.
Right.
In the sense that you want instant access. You want something that's readily available. You want immediacy. In the sense that it erases, like, all of like the beauty and effort of like spending time to like craft something, or like at least giving your money to an artist who deserves it, who will spend hours to like make something nice for you.
100%.
As opposed to like Amazoning it and have it delivered to your door within like 24 hours.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And just like that, Beastars is so much more than just the furries. It challenges conventions, it makes you rethink structures, it blurs the line between boundaries and social structures. It really forces the viewers to really reconsider these ideas and identities and mortality, power.
Very thought-provoking. Much to think.
Yes. Yes, quite. Yeah.
Thinking vibe.
And in light of this video, we're gonna close out the video with a phrase that I came up with, because we're both Vietnamese, and also Quin is doing their studies in Vietnamese and Japanese media, culture, and all of that. Shazam.
My two wolves.
Yes, literally the two wolves. Come on,
Yan!
Okay, swag.
Cute.